this week we're switching it up a little bit, and I am super excited to have Audrey Egener, or Chapter and Converse on Instagram and YouTube, with us this week. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm so excited. This is so cool. I'm very happy to be able to do it. I know.
I think it's kind of
cool.
Like
Bookstagram.
Yes.
Friends.
That was exactly
we connected over there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really cool how many just how many relationships you like can create on Bookstagram that, like, obviously because it's the internet, it can be people that like don't live physically near you. So I feel like there are all these people I've had like DM conversations with, but I haven't like spoken to them one-on-one like this. So I think it's so fun to do that.
I know. Yeah, I had no idea when I first started. And I remember like watching BookTube first at the beginning, and there were all these people who were like, oh, I've made all these friends through this. And I was like, that's crazy. And then all these years later, I'm like, I've made a bunch of friends through this. This is so cool.
Yeah, it's so fun. And then like you kind of start to know like who like reviews books similarly to you or whatever. And then you just like always have a place to go when you're looking for something to read next.
I know, which is the blessing and the curse of all of this, right? I told you, like, I watched your spring ones, and I was like, a whole bunch of books I didn't have. There goes the list.
Yes. After you said 22, I pulled up your YouTube video and started watching too, and I was like, oh my gosh, there are more on here. We just had the moral of like this week is there are a lot of thrillers to read this spring, but I love it. I'm excited for it.
I know. I'm not mad about it. Somebody's got to fill the Ashley Winstead void for us. Because year without an Ashley Winstead. I know. When she said that, I was like, all right.
I know. We were so spoiled. I know. For like 3 years in a row. I know. She's so amazing. I'm sure it'll be worth the wait too. But yes, thankfully there are just like so many to fill the time for now. So you have your Bookstagram and you are on BookTube as well. Kind of the same title, Chapter and Converse. So when did you kind of like start those, and like what has your journey been with them, and kind of what's been your favorite parts of it?
I started in 2018 and kind of like not even on purpose. So I had been watching, so I'm a writer, which I know you know, aspiring to be published.
Yeah.
And I live for an author interview, especially when it comes to like inspiration and craft. So I was watching author interviews on YouTube, and all of a sudden, all these book reviews and everything started to get recommended. So I started to watch it, and that's how I figured out that BookTube was a thing. Yeah. And then, I don't know, it was probably like a couple months, and I kind of thought like, I want to talk to people about books. Like my in-person inner circle, like occasionally reads a book, but I didn't have anyone to talk to. So I started to comment on people's videos and engage that way. And then I eventually was like, I'm going to try this. Not that I thought, I was like, it looks easy, but I know it's not easy, but let me just try this. And it couldn't have been like further out of my comfort zone to do it.
Yeah.
But I just started to do it, and it was so bad at the beginning. And all those videos are still up there, but I mean, like they're comical. Like it's dark and I'm whispering and it's like really, really weird. But and it took me probably like a whole day to film and edit one video, like 8 hours kind of a thing. Just slow as could be. So I just kind of started doing it and just kept doing it, and it grew and started to engage with more people, and it was fun. So that and I feel like my Bookstagram probably started around the same time because I had a personal one that I never really used. So just created that as a companion.
Yeah. So, yeah, that totally makes sense. It is like the stuff you make at the beginning, like it's good because you started and you got it out there, but then every now and then you're like, you're 2 years away from something and you're like, oh, that's what I was doing. Cool. But like, it's still good because you started.
Exactly. I know. And even like talking about books, and I definitely, like when I look back at it and can see how my personality is so much quieter. So weirdly, like as a super introvert, this has helped me become more extroverted and like more confident and like more, not that I was not myself, but like much less self-conscious about things. Cause obviously like when you're editing yourself, I mean, you're staring at yourself all day. I figured out every weird tic and facial expression that I have. And it's just like, now you're
Yes.
just like, this is
My
what it is.
hands are all over the place.
Yes, I'm a big hands
Especially
person. I'm
when
a
I'm
huge
like,
hands person.
yes. Yeah, you have to get like someone was just asking me about that. They're like, "So you edit yourself?" And I was like, for someone who like generally is pretty self-critical, you have to like get over it pretty quickly is what I was at least telling
Mhm.
her when you're editing yourself because it's like sometimes in like interviews it's not like I can go back and change it anyway. So like for
Right.
me it was like at first it was weird and then you're just kind of like, well, this is what I'm doing and like I'm not going to just
Hmm.
keep retrying to do things over and over and over and over again. So like eventually it gets a little bit easier for anyone who's thinking about doing it, but it is weird at first. You're like, oh, this is what people are staring at when I talk to them and get excited.
I know. And I totally refilmed a few videos at the beginning. And then, yeah,
Yeah,
same. I just got to the point where it was like, I don't have that kind of time. Put it out there.
right.
It's fine. Like, it's about the conversation. So as long as there
Yeah,
was nothing glaringly like fire trucks or things in the background,
right.
I just like put them all out there.
Dogs.
But yeah, dogs.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know every once in a while there's like something that happens and you're kind of like, it's fine. I'm just going to leave it.
yeah. Uh-huh.
I can't be
Yeah,
bothered with
I've had the same
reshoots.
thing you were talking about. Yes. The introverted stuff too though. That's like it's been kind of cool because I feel like a lot of the people I still talk to, whether it's authors or just like other readers, like a lot of us are introverts in general. But
Hmm.
I've also like because I've definitely read books on introversion because I'm that kind of an introvert. And they often talk about how like introverts are like it's kind of like the small talk is what's difficult or like
Hmm.
those kind of conversations, but that if you get an introvert talking about something that they like really care about, like they appear like an extrovert. And so that's it's kind of been cool. That's like been some of my experience with it is like it's still easier for me to like talk to someone when I know we just have like so many books in common or just like love
Hmm.
books. And so then all of a sudden you're having a conversation and people are like, "You're an introvert?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
I
So it is
know.
fun.
Yeah, it's such a good gateway. It totally is. I know. I
Mhm.
have this sticker that says introverted but willing to talk about Murder She Wrote because I can
Oh
talk
my
about that all
gosh,
day
I love
long.
that. Yes.
It's like
I
my
need we
favorite
need
show.
yeah, we need shirts like that. For
Hmm.
someone needs to make a shirt like that.
Totally.
So you said you're also a writer. So
Yes.
and obviously you're a reader. Have you been reading like your whole life? Has that always been a thing for you? And what about writing as well?
I would say lifetime reader for sure.
Mhm.
Was always like something encouraged in my house. We were going to the library, bookstores. There were always books around. I'm the younger of two kids, but I definitely was like happy to be alone, introvert. So
Yeah.
always with a book. And I think my parents were happy with the fact like she's got a book, she's quiet, like she's doing her own thing. So definitely always
Yeah.
reading. It definitely ebbed and flowed, where there were times where you weren't reading as
Mhm.
much, but yeah, always with a book. And I feel like writing
Mhm.
kind of similarly, like whether it was a diary or I was always making up stories, which was my version of like, I'm not lying, I'm just making up a story. I'm just like making up
Right?
things. But yeah, it
Just
was just always sort of
imaginative.
like, yeah, writing poems, writing short stories, kind of funny stuff like that. So that ebbed and flowed also and kind of definitely ignored it for years. And one of the things that I love about Ashley Winstead, and it was like one of the first interviews I heard her talk
Mhm.
about, where she had said how
Yeah.
like she couldn't get into that master's program and got, or like the graduate school, and they were kind of like, she took it as
Yeah.
like, you're not good enough. And she just shut down for 10 years. I 1,000%
Oh.
had like a similar experience where like writing got rejected, tried to send it to agents. And I was like, I'm not good enough.
Mm.
I'm not doing this anymore. So took
Ugh.
time off. I know and I know you need to be more thick skin about it and everything, but
I mean, it's not gonna come naturally to be like, "No, I believe
mhm.
in myself," when you're, like, getting rejections. It's
Yeah,
tough.
I know.
Yeah.
And I originally went to school well, I went to school for journalism. So I kind of always had a vision of
Okay.
magazine writing, but always wanted to,
Mhm.
like, always gravitating towards fiction. Like, I didn't want to be a news reporter or
Right.
like the facts were not fun. Fiction's more fun. So
No, fiction's more
it's always been in
fun.
there. Yeah, for sure.
Mhm. That is
So
so
always been in
cool.
there. Still
Well,
working on it.
yeah, that's kinda cool, though, because I'm I don't want to say I'm trying to write a manuscript because I am technically,
Hmm.
but I'm one of my main characters. I was just working on it is a journalist, and I was just starting to have questions because I'm not a journalist about like the details of it.
Hmm.
So I might have to throw you some questions every now and then so that I don't
For
sound
sure.
like a goofball writing about a journalist.
I know the Google search is trying to find out facts for things. I was Googling
Yes.
some weird stuff this weekend,
Mm-hmm.
but even like I was trying to Google liquor laws in North
Oh
Carolina
yeah.
because part of my book is set years ago, like when were things allowed? Like you start looking for weird stuff. So
Right.
I'm in the Sisters in Crime group, and a lot of times people will
Mm-hmm.
just like pop a question in the chat, like, "Does anyone know how to sail?
Oh
Anyone ever been
nice.
to Vermont?" To try and get that authenticity. So that's like one of the
Yeah.
beauties of these connections too.
Yeah. I hadn't even thought of that. That's really cool. So I did I asked you the hardest question maybe to ever ask a reader. And I
I
wanted to
know.
see if you could find really any number of books that
You said
describe your reading
three, and I was
reputation.
like,
I know
three?
I said three. And then you were like, what about seven? I was like, that's fine too. In some ways, I wasn't even thinking of how it would be easier to do seven than to do three. I was trying to like, oh,
Yeah,
three is like palatable, and then I was like, no, actually, that's like way harder to do. So, however
I
many you
know.
have,
Yeah,
I'm
and there's
interested to
more than
see what
three
they
next to
are.
me, but I'm not going to pull all of them. I
Yeah.
know, and I feel like I definitely feel like I'm betraying some of my favorite people, but I was
I
also
get
trying to
it.
come at this from like what describes me as a reader, as you said. So
Yeah.
I'm like looking at the pile,
Yeah.
and of course, because I'm like a booktuber, I have visuals. So for anyone who maybe is
Right.
watching this on YouTube, but when anyone's
Yes.
not watching
Yes.
us, I'm going to talk about them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want me to just jump in or
Yeah. Go for it. Just
no?
pick one and kind of tell us what it is you love about it.
Okay. So the first, and these are in no particular order. I feel like I need
Yes.
to
I know
make
I
10
always have to
10,000
like
excuses
give
for
that
things.
stipulation. Yeah.
I know. So the first book I picked was Jar of Hearts by Jennifer Hillier. So she was one
Yes.
of those authors, and actually the next person is also going to be from this. So the first Thriller Fest I went to,
Mhm.
I had never heard, I thought I was like so well versed on so many authors. Was watching a
Yeah.
thriller panel and she was on it talking about this book. And I was like, who is this woman and what is this book she's talking about? So like immediately went home and got it. And I don't know when on my channel I started coining this term that I like books about dark and messed up people doing dark and messed up things. And this
Yeah.
book is like all of that. So like I'm not going to spoil anything for anyone, but it's about this girl
Mhm.
Geo who I want to say she's like 30 years old and she winds up getting arrested for a connection to a murder that happened when she was a teenager of her best friend. And I was like so blown away by how totally dark this went. This book made me super
Yes.
uncomfortable, totally unexpected, but like so well written. So it's like one of those blends of like such a page-turning thriller, but also like such gorgeous writing and characters you're totally rooting for, morally gray, like the whole nine
Oh
yards.
yeah.
I was completely obsessed. Completely,
I'm
completely
obsessed with that
obsessed.
cover.
And
I have somehow not seen that cover.
right?
That is
This is
so
one of the
pretty.
UK covers. I have a very toxic
Ooh.
habit of buying multiples of books.
Yes. Yeah.
So
So does Gear.
I maybe have two of these. So
Oh,
I
that's
have the US one and I
awesome.
have this one. Such a,
I love that
such
one.
a yeah, I'm such a hoarder. Um, but I was like I felt like I'd never read anything like this before. And I don't know
I
if
would
this was maybe
agree.
like 2018-ish, I think it was.
Probably. Yeah,
I think
it's a
like when I
while
read
ago.
it, I
Mhm.
was stunned. And then, like, as a writer, I was completely blown away because it definitely felt like she put it all out on the page. And
Mhm.
the Thriller Fest the next year, I wound up bringing my copy of it, like the other
Mhm.
one, and like finding her and being completely like red faced and stuttery and being like, oh my God, I love your book and I'm such a
Yes.
huge fan. Da, da, da. And I was telling her, like, it just felt like you went all in. And she was like, this was like I may never write another book again, and I'm going to write the book I want to write and basically like
Wow.
leave nothing on the table and put it all in there. And I was just like, you're my
Yes.
hero. So,
Yeah.
like, as a reader and a
It is
writer, this
wild.
is like my hero book. Yeah,
Mhm.
for sure.
That is so
Oof.
cool that that was, like, how she approached
Yeah.
it because it's so It's so much different than like any other thriller I've ever read, even though it has some of the tropes.
Yep. Yeah. And I feel like any time, and there's like a couple books here, I feel like when you can take something that's familiar and do something totally different with it, or completely just
Yes.
like send me down a path I didn't even see coming, is one of my favorite
Yeah.
things that an author
Yeah.
does. And
Me too.
so my second book, who was on that exact same panel, was Riley Sager. So I have Final Girls.
Ooh,
So
nice.
this was the first of his books that I've read, and it's still my favorite. It's like I've read them all, but this one is
Hmm.
still, I don't know if it's just like sentimental reasons, but I just absolutely love it. And like I've read both of these twice. I'm like such a huge rereader.
Yeah.
And like same thing, you know, he's talking about this book and like horror movies and his love of horror movies and Scream and all this. And I was like, who is this man and what is this book? Like, I was just like,
Yeah.
what rock am I living under that I don't know who any of these people are? So
Yeah.
I feel like it was just like such a similar experience where like it was so bingeable. It totally surprised me. It was, and I was reading dark books already, but it was like a different kind of darkness. I feel like
Mm.
in these books, if that makes sense. And
Hmm.
I just like I love dual timelines. I love
Yes.
just sort of questionable characters. Like again, like that morally
Hmm.
gray, not quite sure who to trust. And ugh, I just loved it. I just absolutely loved it.
Me too.
I know. I'm such a huge fan of his. Such a huge fan of his. Okay,
I
so let me
know.
go
His
like
new
a
ones,
little
his new ones coming up
non-thriller.
here too.
I know. And it got a starred review in Publishers Weekly. Did you see
I
that?
just saw that. I just saw that. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
exciting.
I
The cover
know.
looks so
I
cool too.
I know. This I also feel like is like the year of the cover. There's so many gorgeous covers coming out this year.
I know.
And I'm just
They're
like
all
trying to
beautiful.
decide. Um, I was looking at A Talent for Murder, the new Peter Swanson book, and I was like
Oh
comparing the
yeah.
UK and the US cover, and I don't know which one to get because I'm such
Yeah.
a cover buyer. So I'm like on the fence
Hmm.
with which one to get.
These are the
So
things we stress about.
I know. And I was waiting for the UK cover to get released before I pre-ordered it because I didn't want to like
Yeah.
make a mistake. So I still can't
Yes.
decide, but so I'll talk about him. So I have The Kind Worth Killing, which is like one of
Yes.
the biggest
Oh,
books that I recommend. And you were just
I'm
talking
seeing
about
why we
this.
have so many books in common.
I know. So like the new Steve Kavanaugh book, so that Strangers on a Train vibe,
Yes.
which
Have
is
you
like
read
one of
it?
my favorite. Yeah, it's so
I just
good.
finished it a couple weeks ago. That was why.
Oh
Like
my God.
when you were saying like taking a unique take on something that like already
Hmm.
exists, I almost brought it up when you were talking about Jennifer Hillier because that one is such a good example of like taking a trope and then actually making it completely unique. So
Right.
good. So
And
that's called Kill for Me, Kill for You for anyone who doesn't know.
yes, sorry.
I
Talk
know,
about
I
them
just
all.
realized I didn't say it.
And even with that, so like this is man and woman meet in an airport in London. Their plane is delayed. They have a couple cocktails. They start exchanging some secrets. And he basically says, like, my wife is having an affair and I want to kill her. And Lily is like, you should do that. And like, I can help you. And like, that's the first chapter of the book.
Yeah.
So I'm a sucker for that trope. And then I went to school in Boston and I lived there for a while. So anything Boston or Boston adjacent completely is just like catnip for me. I totally want to
Oh,
read
I
it.
bet.
So they are in and around Boston in this book. And I feel like it's the
Hmm.
same thing where I'm like, totally surprised me, way darker than I thought. Didn't see,
Yes.
like, thought I knew where it was going,
Hmm.
just had no clue.
Yeah, that was one that I read like when like as I was basically like I was in college, so I was probably like 20 years old, so or 20 or 21. So it was one of those where like I hadn't realized like my adult reading habits yet, I guess is the best way to say
Hmm.
it, or like totally discovered how much I was gonna love thrillers. And I
Hmm.
remember I read that one either right before or right after Gone Girl. And so like
Oof.
having
Yeah.
those two reading experiences to kick it off. But I remember getting to the end of that one and being like, holy shit, how do people like make plots like or like storylines
Right?
like converge and like come together by the end and like now it's still one of my very favorites, but like it was my like entrance into like how fun thrillers can be with the way they like play with timelines and different
Hmm.
characters like crisscrossing with each other. Oh, it's the ending is so good.
I know. And just how unexpected. And when I was reading Kill for Me, Kill for You, like
Hmm.
things were happening and I was remembering this book and I was like, well, this is what's going to happen next. And I was like, no, it's not. And then like I was expecting it. It's like when you watch like a very cliche horror movie where you're like, oh, this is
Yeah.
where this thing's going to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, the way that he was able to, Steve Kavanaugh's fantastic. He's
Yeah. That was
just
actually my
such a good
first of
writer.
his, so I need to read some more of his. I don't know
You
how
haven't
it.
read
Ooh,
13?
I haven't read that one. I've seen it like
Oh my
everywhere, even on like Book
God.
Talk.
It's
Okay, so I
so
need
good.
to.
So this was
Oh,
the front cover. So this is 13 by Steve Kavanaugh. And the line on the cover says the serial killer isn't on trial, he's on the jury. And this is like very creepy. Like this definitely
I
bordered
bet.
on giving me some nightmares, but
Yeah.
it was so worth it. It's kind of like that
Oh,
book Night Watching I was telling you about by
I
Tracy Sierra, like
I
definitely
know.
nightmare inducing,
My
but
husband
so
is
worth
still
it.
gone. And so
Oh
like
yeah,
I
you
bought
gotta
it
wait.
after you posted that review, and then it's just been
Yeah.
sitting there because he's been gone for 6
Yeah,
days, and I'm
wait.
like, I can't do it
Yeah.
to myself.
Don't do it. Don't do it. And this book I didn't know was going to freak me out as much as it did, but it's
Uh-huh.
really good. And I want to say it's like the fourth or fifth in the Eddie
Oh
Flynn
yeah.
series, but I didn't even realize
Mhm.
it was part of a series when I read it. You can just
Okay.
read it straight in. I
Okay.
haven't read the books before it. Like it gives you enough background. He's the attorney,
Nice.
so it's fine.
That's good to
So
know.
you
I
don't
was
need
about
to
to
read the
ask.
whole series. Yeah. So it's
That's good
definitely like super dark, and you get the serial killer's POV, which makes
to know.
it
Ooh,
like extra creepy.
very creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could
I
see
feel
that
like,
after because Kill for Me, Kill for You is like it's very bloody. Like it is a very violent one too. So
hmm
I wouldn't
I
be
know, which I
surprised.
don't always love. Like
I know
it's,
it's not always. I don't need pages upon pages of it, and thankfully
yeah,
there wasn't
if
in that
it's,
one.
yeah, done right. Like I can't do body horror, but
Same. It's not my thing, especially in movies
no,
too. Like, oh
yeah,
no.
yeah, that's a fast DNF for me if that's
Yeah,
happening.
me too.
Yeah. Okay. Let me go to something like way lighter. So the next one I picked was Ralph's Party by Lisa Jewell. So this is her
Ooh, I
first
have
book.
not read that. Okay.
Yeah. So this is when she calls it pop fiction, kind of her initial
Yep.
books.
Mm-hmm.
And I read this when it first came out. So like just to date myself completely. But I want to say this came out in like 2000 or 2001
It says
and
1999.
or 1999. And so this was like the heyday of like Bridget Jones and
Okay.
kind of
Yep.
like the cringeworthy like chick lit tag. So she called it
Right.
pop fiction. So it's like
I
super
like that.
character driven. Yeah, she's the best. So this is like I feel like a gateway in terms of books that I love, but also turning me into like an
Mm-hmm.
author that I love. So it's
Yeah.
about this woman, Jem, who winds up moving into a flat with these two guys who are best friends, Ralph and Smith. And it's about kind of all the people who live in this house and how, like, three separate apartments and how their lives intersect. Super character driven, a little bit of
Ooh.
romance, but they are, I want to say like late 20s, 30s. So it's sort of like that time in your life, but kind of like not quite like you're into adulthood, things are changing, people are getting married.
Mm.
So it was very just sort of like relatable when I read it and I just loved it. And I reread it 2 years ago and I loved it just as
Yeah.
much. Like her writing is so fantastic and I feel like her books are so character driven and I just like I
Mm-hmm.
love fantastic characters that I can get super excited about and just get invested in.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
she's one of those authors who can, in my book, like do no wrong and then got into like low mysteries, like kind of low key mysteries, and then now is into like real thriller land.
Yeah.
So
I've heard her or I've heard other people talk about the more would you say pop fiction era, but I
mhm.
haven't read any of them. That I haven't strayed completely out of her mysteries and thrillers. So now I might need to.
Yeah,
Perhaps perhaps
I
when
enjoy
I'm
them.
avoiding scary books again.
Yeah, it's like a good palate cleanser, but not like
Yeah.
completely like what's the word I'm looking for? Like it's still like a very solid book. So it's not like completely
Yeah.
like I'm watching like a Pretty Little Liars episode or something kind of palate cleanser.
Right.
So it's like a
Right.
still just really and I feel
Yeah.
like you can obviously see her writing in this, but I don't know.
That's cool.
I just love her writing
She's
so
I
much. So
wonder if she'll ever switch again. Like if she's like basically
I
just since she has
know.
before. I wonder if she'll ever want to go in another genre direction. But she did announce like she's doing a Jessica Jones
I
novel, which
know.
is
I
kind of
saw
switching
that.
it up now that I think about it. So maybe she does just
I
kind of like
know.
trying out different genres, which is cool.
I know. Any author who can do that, like
Mm-hmm.
Ashley Winstead and like Jesse Hugh Sutanto
Yeah.
or Geneva Rose, like who can
Yes.
do those switches so easily. I'm like, I'm still working on my books.
I
And you're
know. I
writing all
know.
these different
I don't think I
genres.
have anything in me other than a thriller, but I'm
I
open to the
know.
idea of it.
Exactly. I know. You never know what's going to
I'm not
come,
I don't think
right?
I'm romantic enough to write romance, so
I know. I tried that like in my Lisa Jewell era. And that was the one
yeah.
where like submitted it and got asked for stuff and then was told no and like
Oh,
broke just crushed me. I also wrote like a
I
120,000 word romance. Like, stop
oh wow.
it. I just didn't know any better.
You just had all the feelings in it.
Exactly. Could not have been more autobiographical if I tried,
Oh,
but with a
nice.
happier
Yeah,
ending.
well, that would make it harder to, like, shorten it.
Yeah, it was way too personal. It's like the one that should have lived
Yeah,
under the bed, but I let it out into the world and just shouldn't have.
at least you tried.
Yeah, it's true. Tried. Okay.
Mhm.
Next book I have is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. So classic
Mm.
and definitely one of my favorite tropes. Anything
Yeah.
with an isolated setting, like I'm all in
Mhm.
completely. So this is
Yeah.
just, I'm working on a slow read through of Agatha Christie books, but
Yeah.
this is definitely, I don't know if I feel like it's my favorite. It's just like like what she did with this book is just unbelievable to me.
Right.
Have you read it?
Like, I read it a long like, it was a
Oh, yeah.
while ago, but yes, I
Hmm.
have. What I was just thinking about was, like, the fact that she wrote it even longer ago, obviously, so
Yes.
long ago, and that it, like, it was a completely new idea when she did it, obviously,
Hmm.
and then just how crazy it is to think of how long it's, like, stuck around with thriller readers, like, how much it works, basically.
Right. Yeah, everyone tries to replicate it. But anytime a
Yeah.
book is compared to this, I'm like a marketer's dream. I'm like, yep.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, that
just
was what were I saw you posted about what's the one there should have been 8? Is that what it's called? It's something with 8 in it
yes.
that was
Yes. I haven't
compared
read
to
it
it,
yet.
and I was like, "Oh, I
Yes.
need to read that one too."
I know. And like it's they're not on an island, but The Hunting Party by Lucy
Mhm.
Foley is another one of my favorite
Yes.
isolated, wintry,
That one's
like
fantastic.
toxic friendships, all that kind of good stuff. I
Mhm.
just love that.
Yeah, me too. And there's,
Yeah,
like,
the past
so
and present
much
mystery.
to think about the whole time that you're reading it because 'cause you're
Hmm.
suspicious of everyone.
Yes.
I don't know if you watch as getting attacked by hiccups. I
Uh-oh.
don't know if you watch as much TV. I feel like I even watch less TV now that I read more. But there was an FX show called Murder at the End of the World that
Mm-mm.
is so good. And it's like that trope. They're like isolated in the middle of like some frozen tundra. So like I don't know if that's Antarctica or what, but like basically a
Yep.
billionaire has like a kind of like a resort in the middle of a bunch of ice. And so he like calls a certain amount of people together for something and then someone gets murdered the first night and then it happens again. But it like combines all these like cuz he's a tech billionaire. So it combines
Hmm.
these like kind of speculative fiction aspects about tech and the way it like fits into our lives, but is also like this really good like and then we were none type thing happening in the present. And then in the past, the main character was like hunting down a serial killer. So it has like so many
Ooh.
of our favorite things in a TV show, and I really loved it.
I don't even know. I'm terrible with like I'm on season 2 of Succession right now. Like that's how far behind I am on life. Although I did watch Saltburn, thanks to you. You
Ooh,
put that on my
see, well,
radar. I know.
sometimes it's easier to read like or to watch like a movie because you're like, I've got
Hmm.
an hour and a half
I
versus
know.
like
And
the
I was
8 hours you need
curious.
for other. Oh my gosh, how could you not be
Yeah, I was like
curious about
I
Saltburn at
need
this
to
point?
know.
Really?
I know.
Yeah.
It's when you were talking to
Oh,
Gare about it
so
before he
fun.
had seen it and you were
Uh-huh.
so cryptic and I'm like, "What?" Like I was
Yes.
like, "I don't even know what this is." And I looked it up and I was like, "I need to
Right.
find out. I need to find out." And
Oh,
then I
it was
immediately
so
was like,
fun.
"People need to watch this." Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
loved
know.
it so much.
Yeah, I'm
It was
historically
a really
behind
good
on
one.
television though. Yeah, that was a good one.
I get
Okay.
it. Every time I try to like, I feel like Succession is a show I should like, and when I tried watching it a few years ago, I just like wasn't. It wasn't like hooking me, so I never made it
hmm
past a couple episodes. But I know everybody loves it.
I feel like it's a mood because I tried to watch it maybe like a
Hmm.
year ago and couldn't get into it,
Yeah.
and then
Okay.
went back to it. I don't know, maybe like a couple months ago. And I mean,
Hmm.
obviously, I'm in the middle of season two, so it's not like I'm watching it every night. So
Right.
I've heard it gets better. Like I kind of feel like season
Mm.
one had to set the scene, and
Right.
then it kind of gets more,
Okay.
I don't know, messed up maybe.
Yeah.
So like
Like
I'm
catchy.
into it, but I'm also like right now I'm like I'm probably gonna have to like rewatch the last episode to remember this episode. Like I'm kind of not sure
Yeah. Yeah.
what's happening, but yeah, I haven't been completely religious about it. I'm not great with
Hmm.
television. I used to
Yeah, I
be.
used to watch more, and I can't
Hmm
tell, obviously, like when the writer's strike was happening, there's been like less TV and less movies that came out. So there's kind of that going on too, but like I feel like I used to watch more, but like I also have access to more books now. So it's not like I'm like ever like, man, what am I gonna do?
Exactly. And I feel like when I
Like
do
there's
turn
always
it on,
something.
I'm just, it's like maybe background noise. So it's something I've watched
Yes.
100 times,
Yeah.
like Murder, She Wrote or Castle
Right.
or something like that. So it's just like in the
Hmm.
background. So I'm not really paying
Yeah.
attention.
Yeah.
I know.
I'm the same way. Sometimes have to turn stuff on just so my dogs will chill and let me read. So that's probably
Yeah,
more.
just to
I have
break it.
Housewives on sometimes while I'm reading.
Oh, I'm behind on Vanderpump. That's my Bravo bad
It
show.
is. Have you always watched it, or did you?
Yes, I've watched it
Okay.
since
Okay.
like the Beverly Hills transition episode to Sheena.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, yes, that transition, and they're gonna do that. They're
It was
doing that
so
with the
good.
new show, The Valley. They're
Oh,
gonna do the
really?
same thing in the middle of VPR. They're gonna do like kind of an homage to that transition, and
So
transition into
good.
The Valley. I was listening to someone's podcast, but yeah, it's like it's definitely different this season. But I think it's just because
hmm
everything got so shaken up right right as they were about to start recording again. So I listened to Lala's podcast, and she
hmm
said it's about to get a little bit more like involved. So I'm like, I'll wait it out.
Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely going to. I feel like the first
Mhm.
couple episodes have been stuff we already knew since it was
Yes, I think
so
so too.
in the public domain. So there's like
Public,
nothing shocking has really happened yet. So I'm waiting for the good
right?
stuff to
Yeah,
really start rolling out.
yeah. It is.
Good
I do.
show.
It is. It is such a fun show. The early seasons were so crazy, and I miss
Oh my
Stassi so much.
God. I know. I know. It's not that I miss Jax, but like I miss the mess he
Oh
used
yeah,
to stir. It's
he's a
getting a little
good
dry with
villain.
some of these guys. Yeah, exactly. He's a perfect
And he's
villain.
just he's a personality. Like that's I think I heard Tom Schwartz, I think it was, who was talking about him on a podcast here recently, where he was like he's like made for reality TV. So he just
hmm
is, even though he's a little
Yeah, he
crazy.
played the part. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. He definitely played the part well. Oh,
Hmm.
it's so good. It's so good.
I know.
All right, I've
It's so good.
one book
Do you
left that
have
I'm going to
another?
share. I'm not going to worry about these
Okay,
other ones.
nice.
Just last one. So it's The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Just because I couldn't
Ooh.
not talk about dark academia, this was definitely my dark
Yep.
academia gateway.
Hmm.
And I feel like it's one of these books that people like either love it or don't. And I'm
Yep.
definitely in camp love it, obviously, because I'm talking about it. But
Hmm.
the whole idea that like on page one we know somebody's dead, and then we go back to figure out like
Yes.
why and what and all of that. And I actually started rewatching How to Get Away with Murder.
That's what it was
And
making me think.
yeah, when I was picking the books the other day and I pulled this book out, I'm like, this is the How to Get Away with Murder book. So I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start rewatching that again. The pilot is
Yes.
amazing. I only watched the pilot again.
So
Such a
good.
good show. But
The whole
eventually
first season is like stunning.
yes,
Like the other ones are still
yes.
good, but like it could have been like a mini series, one
hmm
season, and it would still just be
Yep.
amazing.
Oh my God. Yeah. So this book definitely like gives
So
me
good.
that vibe also, but
Yeah.
anything dark academia, anything where like when I read a book,
It's-
um, I always mess up the name of the second Jamie Lynn Hendricks books because I have the UK one. I think It Could Be Anyone.
Um,
is the
Yes, it could
US
be anyone.
edition.
Hmm.
And I always have
Yep.
the wrong name, but like that on page one that the groom is dead, and then
Yes.
you've got the group of friends, and then it goes back to lead up to like what happened.
Yeah.
I loved that book. Like that was my
Yes.
first book of hers that I read
Oh,
and
nice.
obsessed. Totally
Yeah, I
obsessed.
loved
But
the way that one was paced.
hmm
She technically said, which I don't even know if this is the case at this point because that interview would have been like 2 years ago. But she said, because there's something about the ending that could be kind of open to the idea of a sequel. And
oh, I love
she said they
that.
were like testing the idea and playing with it. And I was like, I could totally do that. Because it's like two of the characters who are, I'm being vague for people who haven't read it,
hmm
who are surviving at the end or whatever. You're kind of attached to them for certain reasons. So it
Yep,
would be cool if she did it and just kind of like reconfigured it. But that was like, I
I
feel
know.
like the structure you're talking about, where like you find out something bad happens and then you like go back in time, is like,
hmm
I feel like that was something with like How to Get Away with Murder for sure, but also The
hmm
Affair that I talk about so much on
I've
here.
never watched that. And every time you
Yeah.
talk about it, I'm like, but Joshua Jackson, like, why am I not watching this? Like, he's the
Yes.
number one reason. I've heard such great things
Yes.
about that show.
Yeah, and it does that same structure. And I like I basically I'm just like thinking back on like getting introduced to that structure and being like, "Oh my gosh, this is
hmm
so cool." And just the ways that like the sometimes the opening scene is even misleading. So it's like you even
Yes.
think you know where it's going and
hmm
then there's like almost like a twist built into the opening scene even. It's so fun. All the plots that come from that.
I know. Yeah, just all the different paths that you go down.
Yeah.
And you were saying before, like when authors play with time, just all these.
Mhm.
And I think like with like these books and books like it that I love, it's like
Mhm.
they play with you, but it's like they're not playing unfairly. Like I have no patience for like a
Yeah.
book that doesn't play fair. So even though I can't figure it out, when you go back and reread it or see all the clues, or it's just like so
Yeah.
smart, the way that the
Yes.
twists and the characters and all of it's there. Oh,
Mhm.
I'm just, yeah, blown away.
So
Absolutely
fun.
blown away by them. I
I
know.
know.
It's so
I
good.
love that structure. Now I want to watch How to Get Away with Murder again. It's been like years since I watched it.
I know. I kind of only want to watch it through the Who's Under the Sheet season because that's the season
Mhm.
that I was like, no.
I know. It was
I
getting outrageous.
I'm not pleased with how this all went.
I know. I know. Yeah, that one was rough.
Yeah. It was such a
I can't
good like
remember if I watched
start.
the next one. Yeah.
I watched the whole thing because I can't not.
I can't
And they did
remember
like,
right now if I did or
yeah, they threw us a bone in the finale, but
not. Yeah.
for like the long time watchers.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to like keep a concept going in a TV show that would like
hmm
work in a book because it's just one story versus the pressure to keep making more seasons.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and even like I do love a sequel. So even like the Kymworth killing that he did, the
Mm-hmm.
Kymworth saving. So you get some characters, and then even his new book, A Talent for Murder, is going to have somebody from those
Oh, nice.
in it. So I always like hesitate to say like who or anything like that because I don't want to
Right.
let people know stuff. But
Yeah.
even like authors who Easter egg, like how Jennifer Hillier, everything's in the same universe.
Yes.
So
Mm-hmm.
she will pull characters or cross reference things. Like if you read the series, you know, and if you don't, you're not missing anything because it still
Right. It's
works
just there.
even if you don't know. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I love that
Yeah.
idea.
Catherine
So
Ryan
even
Howard does it too.
does she pull people? I'm behind on her. I've only read three of her books.
I think I've only read four. I still have more to read too, but like it's just these little things that are in
Ooh,
there that
I love
do
that.
reference just like even if it's sometimes like a news article that's like
Okay.
referencing an event that happened, like sometimes it's as
Mm-hmm.
subtle as that. Like it's not even a whole character.
Oh, I'm gonna have to pay closer attention. I didn't know she did that. I'm also reading her
Yeah.
stuff totally out
I
of
need to
order.
read more of her still.
Yeah, I know. She's one of my like read to zero authors that I want to work on,
I love
along with
that
Lisa Jewell.
term. I was just about to bring that up. It's like I never had a
Ah,
term for like wanting to get through someone's backlist, and I'm like, that is such a smart term.
yeah, I don't know where I heard it. I obviously on BookTube somebody had said it,
Yeah,
but like
I
yeah, you
like
want
it.
to read down the list. I know. It's a
Mm-hmm.
big goal,
Yeah.
especially with like Elisa Jewell.
Oh my gosh, I know. That's what I was thinking with sequels too, because her Family Upstairs and Family
Mm-hmm.
Remains. That was another
So
fun one,
good.
seeing people's like characters come back a little
Yes.
bit. Well, completely
Mm-hmm.
actually.
Yeah. And then you still get some new people in it. So it's not just
Mm-hmm.
like you say, like a TV show where it's hard to carry on. Like she dropped some people off,
Yeah.
brought some people in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very smart. And even Ralph's Party has a sequel, and she wrote it, I
Oh,
want to say
nice.
it was like 10 years after, and it's called After the
Oh, wow.
Party. And I was listening to an old interview, or I don't know, maybe it was like an interview from like 2 years ago, but she was talking about it and
Mm-hmm.
saying how like she's kind of, not that she was mad that she wrote it, but it was sort of
Mm-hmm.
like the 10-year anniversary. And I think there was like a little publisher pressure to write it. So she continued the story.
Uh,
But I liked it. Like I liked seeing where the characters wound up because I
right.
thought, and it also, and it aged them 10 years. So it was real time. It wasn't like it picked up the
Mm-hmm.
day after this book ended. So I always liked
Right.
that when done well. But like
Yeah. Right.
she did it well. But yeah, I didn't even
Yeah.
realize there was a sequel.
Yeah, it sometimes because sometimes they do that with shows that get repicked back up too, where it's like
Hmm.
they do have to age them because the actors are older, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. All the reboots. I know all the
Well,
reboots with of all the old shows. Yeah, sometimes it's
yeah,
not as interesting as it used to be.
no, I know that would suck if you were like super excited to be a part of it, and then you're like, oh, this is just not landing. But you gotta try sometimes for the reunions.
I know. I feel like I got into, I don't know if you were a 90210 fan, like the
Uh,
original
no,
Shannon
no,
Doherty.
but
You're
I like
probably too
know a
young.
little bit about it. It's not even necessarily young. It's just like
Not your
restrictive
thing.
childhood.
Oh, okay. So when they did like the reboot where they had like Kelly and Donna and Brendan, like brought them back, but it's
Yeah.
totally not where their characters would have necessarily ended up. So it was like this weird,
Oh.
they just like needed them for the transition almost. But then
Yeah.
they did like another reboot where they played exaggerated versions of themselves, but people were like, I don't want that. Like, I
Oh,
want Brenda and Brandon and all of that. So it's like it just kind of
right.
kept those characters kind of not clicking. But
Hmm.
I will still like listen to every podcast and watch everything that they're in. I'm such a Shannon
Oh,
Doherty
yeah.
fan. I love
It
her.
is cool. There's some podcasts that do like rewatches now,
Hmm.
where like they do like the actors or whatever. Well, I was even just it was Kristen Cavallari who did it most recently,
Yes.
where she's like
Yeah, the Laguna Beach one.
rewatching. Why can't I think of it? Thank you, Laguna Beach.
Yes.
I was
Yes.
like, why can't I think of this? It is cool seeing just like the different ways like media comes back and like new media
Hmm.
makes it more interesting. So cool.
I know. And they like spilled secrets from behind the scenes, which I
They
liked. Not
did.
everybody does that. Like the One Tree Hill ladies do the same thing. They talk about
Yeah.
everything, which I
The
appreciate.
NDAs must have expired.
Yeah, I know. It's fascinating though,
They're
just to
able to
hear
talk about it.
how, yeah, what was really going on. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm here for that too.
It's cool. We're podcast junkies, clearly.
Yes, I know. Always. That's the other
Mhm.
reason why I'm not watching TV. Like, I'm not reading a book. I'm like listening
I
to a book or
agree.
listening to a podcast.
Yeah. Like even if I'm like doing laundry or something, I'm like rather listen
Hmm.
to a podcast than put something on TV lately.
Hmm.
And we just clearly have so many books in common.
I
It was like
know.
when you were like picking all of your or like revealing all of your books. I was like, oh my gosh, this makes sense. Why I just like follow her reviews all the time.
I know. Well, that's like with you and Gare, where I was just like writing it down, reading it, writing it down, reading it.
Yeah.
Like, so many good
Yes.
recommendations. I know. And I always
I
talk
know.
about you guys on my channel too. And I'm like, so this was a
Yeah.
recommendation by Kate from Killing the Tea. But it's so,
I
like what
love
you
the
said, like when you
cross
find
pollinate.
people yes, that you trust. And it's just sort of like no questions asked, and to be turned on to
Yeah.
new authors and new books and everything. Or I was like, oh, like maybe I'm gonna like bump this higher up the list. But I love it because
Yeah.
you guys talk about so many backlist books too, which I
Yeah.
love. It's not just new releases, so you
Right.
can really dig into so much stuff that's going on. which I
Mm-hmm.
love. I love a good backlist.
I know. It is fun for like I got a bunch of NetGalley like accepted here recently. I was laughing too
Mm.
because on one of your videos you were like, I got denied. You were like, I'm trying not to take it personally or something like that. And I was like, at least it's a universal experience that sometimes I'm like,
Oh my
really? You denied
God.
me for this one?
I know. And then I'm like, you approved me for this one? Like, I actually got this book?
Yes.
But yes, I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I
Like
know.
I got two like I got Mary Kubica's new one and Megan Miranda's new one on a week that like I
Nice.
got declined a debut author, and I was like, how does that make any sense?
I know. I don't will never figure out like the
I
NetGalley
know. Yeah,
system. I feel like it's a lot of luck
I
because I'm
know. I
amazed
think
at
so
what I
too.
like, yeah, what I do get and what I don't get. And then
Yeah.
I haven't tried yet this year, but like last year I begged for Riley Sager, and I have gotten
Mm-hmm.
e-arcs of his in the past, but last year I was like
Yeah.
emailing his publisher, like anything,
Mm-hmm.
nothing, nothing. So I was
Oh
like,
my
come on.
gosh.
And I
That
feel
is
like it
so
came in at
random.
like the 11th hour. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was like really begging early for that one. And I begged for
Yeah.
Ashley
I
Winston
had
and got
one.
nowhere.
I I don't know what's happening there.
Oh, thumbs up.
I why am I frozen? Okay, there we go. That was weird. Um, I had the same. I had the same experience. I didn't get hers. I didn't get Ashley's this year either. I just had to wait, and I was like, I want to read
Hmm.
this so bad.
I know. I know.
It's
Yeah, that
okay.
was a drop everything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
I
real.
know.
Well, I think it came out. Did it come out in October? I think it came out around my
Hmm.
birthday, and I was like, well, at least
Yeah,
it's like the best birthday present.
exactly. I know.
You can
Yeah, I
time
was
it up.
totally into that. There's definitely
Yeah.
some books. I'm reading the new Vera Kurian book, A Step Past Darkness.
Step
I
Past
think that's what it's
Darkness.
called.
Yeah.
Yes, it's behind me. And
Yes.
that was one of
It's
those books where I'm
long,
like,
right?
yeah, I think it's like 400-ish
Okay.
pages. But I definitely was like, I pre-ordered it and I was like, as soon as it comes, like I'm gonna just stop what I'm doing so I can start reading this book.
Yeah.
So there's
Yeah. I
some
love
books
her
I'm
writing.
definitely, yeah. And it's different than Never Saw Me Coming, but obviously it's like it's
Mm-hmm.
still her, but it's a much, have you read
Yeah.
it yet? Okay. So it's like
Hmm. I
slower
haven't.
pace. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a slower burn, but I'm still, she pitched it as like it meets The Breakfast Club meets The Goonies. And it's got dual
Yes. Yeah. I saw
timelines.
that.
Yeah, with like this group of friends. So, and the past timeline is the
Nice.
90s. So I'm just like anything 90s,
Oh,
I'm in. When I was like
that
trying to
is.
pick
Yeah. That
books from
sounds
like,
really.
and then this and that.
Oh
Yeah,
my gosh, I know. How do you pick? Do you pick like what you're reading? Are you kind of a mood reader? Is it kind of
totally a mood
like what you're in
reader.
the mood for? Yeah. I
Hmm.
used to think I wasn't, which I've said here before, but because I was like, all I read is thrillers. And then I was like, no, but there are like certain different kinds of thrillers that I end up wanting to read or not.
Yeah, I've tried to do TBRs or like any of that kind of stuff, and it
Mm-hmm.
just never, like, it just never sticks. Or I feel like I jinx myself. Like I did a dark academia TBR a couple
Yeah.
years ago, and I read nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Like as soon as I was like, I don't want to read
Oh,
any of this. I've already, like, I psyched myself out of it almost.
yeah.
It was
Yeah.
very sad. Yeah, that was a bad year.
Yeah, you don't want to ruin your reading experience if you can avoid that.
I know. Like when I listen to people who have like scheduled books or like projects or like must read, or it gives me anxiety thinking about planning that
Yes,
way. It just doesn't work for me.
I know. Yeah, because sometimes I'll like switch it up based on like what I'm like what work looks like for the week too.
Hmm.
So if I'm like busier for a few days, I'm not going to start like a slow burn book because I know
Right.
it'll feel even slower if I'm like not reading as much
Hmm.
each day. So I'm like, I need
Yep.
to be able to just like decide in the moment.
I know. I know. I try and have like some options. Clearly today is like proof that I like to have a lot of
Yeah.
options, but then
Yes.
I just read like two random backlist books last week, and I
Hmm.
was doing an unhaul. So I was actually filming an unhaul video talking about this book, and I was
Yes.
like, this actually sounds really good. I think I'm going to keep this one.
Yes.
But I made a
You're
deal
like,
with
now I'm
myself. I'm like,
sold
I
on it.
have to read it. Yeah, I was like, I have to read it now, and I did, and it was
Yeah.
good. I'm glad I
Yeah.
read it before. But
Hmm.
yeah, I feel like I just never know what I'm
Hmm.
going to be in the mood for. So I try
Yeah.
not to. I can't
Same.
force it.
No,
Like
it's
it
not
should. It
worth
should
it.
be fun. No.
Yeah. That's how I got with DNFing, because it's like if I'm just genuinely not enjoying it, like 30% in even, I'm like, I
Hmm.
feel like at this point I know if the ending is gonna save it or not for me. So if I'm just like
Yep.
not really picking the book up because I'm like not interested, I'm like, just move on to the next one.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I feel like it's Jordy from Jordy's Book Club who's like,
Hmm.
life's too short to read bad books. Like I know a lot of people say it, but he'll
Yeah.
always like post that reminder when people
Yeah.
say they're struggling with a book.
Yeah.
Because there's some
Like
books you feel
there are
like I
other
should
ones.
like. Yeah, or I
I
should
know.
read.
Yes. I just had one like that where I like, because of like the people who loved it so much, I was
Hmm.
like, there's no way that I'm not going to enjoy this. And I was like, I'm just not enjoying
Yeah. It's like, what's wrong with me? I
it.
know. I know. And I feel bad DNFing, like to the, especially when you
I
say like it's
know.
someone that you know who loved it, where you're like, why can I
Yeah.
not get into this?
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. Sometimes it
Yeah.
just doesn't click, which is
Mm-mm.
like, it is the subjective experience of reading. So I get that like different things just like click in our different people's minds when they're reading.
Yeah. Because I like if I hear someone, I was talking to one of my friends about this the other day about a book that I loved and she loved, and some people just really don't like it. And people like tear down like the way people can just like rip a book apart, which I have no
I
patience for.
know. I
But
know. Me
just
neither.
because you like didn't relate to what was happening in the book doesn't mean it's not a valid
Hmm.
experience. Like maybe it
Right.
wasn't
I
valid for
agree.
you, but it
Yeah.
was I completely related to the book. And then when you hear people
Yes.
say like it's not a valid emotions or things like that, and you're like, I
Right.
think it's valid because they're mine. Like
I know.
just say it didn't work for you or you didn't relate to it. But
Hmm.
yeah,
I
when I hear
know.
people
That's
tear
what,
on
like,
books I love.
I just don't talk about books unless I liked them. Is like
Hmm.
it's just easier for me that way. Like it's helpful sometimes, I guess, people's negative reviews, but not when it's just like mean. Like you can just say it wasn't for
Yeah.
you.
Right. You can be constructive without being rude. I
Hmm.
feel the same way.
Yeah.
Like if something didn't work for me, I'll talk
Hmm.
about it, but not making fun of a book or tearing on a book for sport.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
I
not here for
agree.
that. I
Same.
know.
We're here
It can be
for
tricky.
positive thrillers or
Yeah.
positivity about thrillers.
Positive
Sometimes when I'm like
positive
saying like
serial killer books that might
yes,
give you
and I'm like, this
nightmares.
sounds so deathly and creepy and just so fun. And then I'm like, wait, what did I just say?
I know. And like I definitely like when I'm like recommending books to people, even with my like when I was interviewing for my job and my
Yeah.
I have on my LinkedIn that I'm a writer and my boss had
Mm-hmm.
gone to my now boss saw it and he was so interested in it and he was asking me for book recommendations and I recommended like Jar of Hearts, Final Girls, The Kymworth
Yeah.
Killing, and afterwards I was just sort of like that might not have been like a really smart choice, especially Jar of Hearts. I'm like
I
that's kind
know.
of an aggressive first book.
It's
He
aggressive.
bought it like when I started working there, he's like, "Oh, I bought that book, Jar of Hearts," and I was like, "All right, I just need to preface this and just let you know it's kind of
Oh,
dark."
that's funny.
But he
I
read it and he
know.
loved it, which is good. But I
Oh,
was
that's
like,
good.
"Wow, I should have softballed. Like, I definitely should
I
not have
know.
led with that." I
Yeah, because
couldn't.
sometimes you just don't know if someone has read thrillers or
Yeah.
not. Like, because if they're just not used to it, they're who's I was just talking to Steph, Books in Badgerland, and
Mhm.
she was saying like she started a book club with people who like didn't necessarily read thrillers, read like contemporary fiction or whatever we want to call it. And but she convinced them like let's have a thriller book club, like convinced a couple people to do that, and she had no idea because the book had just come out what it was going to be about. And so the first book they read was The Last Housewife. And
Oof.
these like most of them had like not read thrillers, and they were texting her and they're like, I don't know if I'm going to make it through this or not. She was like, I didn't know it was going to
I
be
didn't
so
know.
intense.
You know, like it's the Last Housewife sounded kind of light.
Yes.
I know. Yeah, I definitely. But I had even recommended. I'm trying to think. It was the new Lisa Jewell book. None of This Is
Oh yeah,
True
none of this is
to
true.
someone, yeah, who she had read a Simone St. James, so I felt like
Oh
that's
yeah.
safe. I didn't think this is like a bad. She
Yeah.
was horrified by this book. And I also recommended Ruth Ware. And I
Uh-huh.
was like, I don't remember that being violent or inappropriate. And I was like,
Right.
I don't put Ruth in that category. And I was like, apparently
Yeah.
it was. I'm like, but you read Simone St. James. She's kind of scary. Like she writes
Yeah.
ghost stories. So it's like,
Mhm.
man, I can't recommend books unless I know
I
you're like
know, when it's
in the
outside of
dark.
the thriller
Yeah.
community,
Yeah. Unless you're in the
it's just
darkness
harder.
with me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's usually what I try and put in reviews, like
Mhm.
particularly dark or like might give you a
Yeah.
nightmare, like those kinds of things, which don't make
Yes.
them bad, but
Yeah.
might not make them for everybody kind of a book.
Mhm. Right. Yeah, I agree. That's typically what's helpful with those reviews, for sure.
Yeah. Give them just enough
Yeah.
without spoiling things. I know.
Yeah. Well, for everyone who does want more dark, disturbing, slightly scary, but really great and fun
With
books,
some
you
Lisa
guys need to
Joel
make
on top.
sure. Well, yes, there's that one too. There's that one too. Your Instagram account, Chapters and Converse, has tons there as well. Is your YouTube channel slash Chapters
It's
and
also
Converse, or is
chapter and
that like
they're both chapter and converse. Yeah.
okay? Okay, I didn't know if that was too. So, but I'll also
Hmm.
put the links in the bio for
Thanks.
everyone to follow for all of our thriller fans. So, thank you for sharing all
Thanks.
of your just like all of your reading recommendations and tastes and everything.
Sure. Thanks for having me. This was so much fun.